Every time we hear about cyberbullying, it's always on social media. But what if you found out that the three alleged cyberbullies were in a hockey league? That's what happened. According to the New York Post, three alleged cyberbullies are suspended from Florida School Hockey League after a teen kills herself. This happened yesterday. Three cyberbullies have been suspended from the hockey league after they allegedly bullied a teammate who then committed suicide, according to a report. The victim's name was McKenna Brown, who was 16. She took her own life in August after she began talking to one of her friend's former boyfriends, which prompted the would-be pal and some other girls to taunt and harass her. Her mother told Dr. Phil this week, Cheryl Brown. Now the identified girls have been suspended from a Florida hockey league because of their alleged bullying, according to the Daily Mail. She was a star athlete who hoped to play women's hockey at University of South Florida. She was one day away from starting her last year at Eastlake High in Tampon Springs when she killed herself on August 7th. She and her husband later pieced together what allegedly led McKenna to kill herself, she told Dr. Phil. Other text messages obtained by Fox 13 showed that one of the girls messaged McKenna, "You've done all of us so wrong, and I hope I never see you again." She also sent lengthy messages and was bombarded by other girls, including one message that reportedly said they wanted to leave her without a single friend. The other girls suggested social media that others cancel McKenna. The worst bully showed up at McKenna's funeral, claims the victim's mother, who believes the aggressor is the unremorseful. Wow. Wow. I'm not going to play you this story, but I can imagine how that feels. Now the parents are 16-year-old girls. Parent McKenna Brown speaking on mental health. She made a couple of mistakes. It led to physical, sexual, emotional abuse. She was blackmailed and bullied by her best friend. The sheriff's department is investigating McKenna's death. So therefore, that's what's happened. Now it's a case of LGBTQ bullying. It finds respite with one online school. A 14-year-old tried public and private schools, but the bullying became too much. She said she was subjected to slurs because of her part of the LGBTQIA plus community. But Gail Tesco said going virtual is not an easy decision, but one that has to make the world difference for her daughter. Hundreds of Lee schools reported zero bullying cases. Recorded zero bullying cases of bullying and cyberbullying. My parents said that's misleading. The behavior changes in the daughter were slight, but they were enough to make the Linda Hurst mom worried. Her 13-year-old daughter would suddenly break down before a big exam despite studying all night. Her confidence seemed to have dwindled overnight. And she no longer felt excited to wake up to school. Sayla realized her daughter was being bullied. The daily barrage of racial slurs and name calling started in the halls of Lindenhurst Middle School and followed Sayla's daughter home. Sayla saw a disturbing text message on her daughter's phone. So there's a pattern of unreported. They reviewed state data available, which was from the 2020-21 school year. It's 2 cases of bullying. These go unreported. And these are the bullying incidents. Cyberbullying is only 2. These are 16 pages. The highest one's from This one's from Bethpage. The high school is Wilmington Method High School, senior high, which is the real deal. 1 crime and 5 real deals here. All the 16 pages. 0, 2, 4, 10 crimes. Look at all this. In Suffolk County. Now this is Nassau County. Look at all this. Look at these all reported. In Suffolk County, this is more pages ever. In this chart, middle school, all these cases of bullying just seem to be downright. So the bottom line is, if you feel like the school's not doing enough, hire an attorney and say, why aren't you doing enough? And the statements, they say like, oh, this and this. So yeah, I feel that something does need to change. A rolling over car. A car that was being hauled out of a lake. A truck that was hauled out of a lake. Shady car dealers that say they stand behind their bodywork. You know what I'm saying here? Well, coming up next, it's a case about title laundering. And we're going to show you a Dateline report from back in 1998 that explains everything about title laundering. Stay with us. Every time I hear a story about Ethan Crumbley, it's very similar to Nikolas Cruz. Because the Oxford school shooting, because these 2 shootings are very similar. You have the Oxford school shooting and the Parkland school shooting, where 2 shooters it's the same thing. Both of them pleaded not guilty, and now 2 are going to plead guilty. One pleaded guilty years ago and is sentenced to jail. Now the other's pleading guilty, and tomorrow, and we'll tell you how that went. But there's new questions about the overactions of the state police in that shooting. On Friday, the department issued termination papers to one of the officers, Sergeant Juan Mondano. According to 2 people reaching the decision, Sergeant Mondano was one of the first officers to enter the school, but could not be seen on body camera videos staying in the doorway of the school instead of heading toward the gunfire. But he was a public information officer. He was being terminated as a result of his actions or indication on May 24th, according to one of the people. A department spokesman confirmed news of the termination move late Friday night. But now new officers are being fired. The first officer, who was Sergeant Juan Malando, then there was another one. But more and more officers are being fired. And more and more officers are continuing to be fired. And we'll keep you posted on what's been going on, as well as these developments continue going on. So, cell phones in schools. So what do you need to know about these cell phones in our schools? In my old school, we had what's called the BYOD, which is bring your own device. Which basically means you use your device for anything education related. Mental health and school safety are the top mind supporters and opponents of phone use in schools. So during COVID, other than the policies in place, there was a policy put in place. Some schools in some states have banned cell phones. Smartphones have become ubiquitous among teens. Schools have increasingly had to wrestle with the problem of managing their use in their classes. While some educators feel there's a place for smartphones in the classroom, others see them as a distraction and a source of cyberbullying. Research indicates they have a negative effect on learning and attention. By 2 years ago, 2020, 77% of schools reported prohibiting cell phones for non-academic use, according to the Federal National Center for Education Statistics. When schools shifted into virtual learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, however, policies to limit and ban cell phones became meaningless, as many students relied on their phones for both schoolwork and entertainment. Now educators say they're seeing smartphone dependence become difficult to happen to break in classrooms and open to return to pre-pandemic procedures. While some school districts have enacted cell phone bans in the wake of the pandemic, others are reestablishing guidelines that were in place beforehand. State legislators like California have also weighed on the issue in recent years, giving districts the authority to limit or ban smartphones in schools. The superintendent of the Ringgold School District, Pennsylvania, says that pre-pandemic, his district had a policy that limited cell phone use in class. For this year, the school announced stricter guidelines that prohibit cell phone use during the school day and mandating specific penalties for which offense. So here is that electronic device policy. Recent national statistics show that approximately 20% of cyberbullying incidents occur over cell phones during the school day, as do the orchestration of fights. As many of you know, the school district was not exempt from these kids' occurrences last year. The police department documented 56 criminal case incidents in the last school year where students used cell phone communication with fellow students to plan fights, harass other students, coordinate vaping gatherings in school bathrooms, vandalize property, commit other criminal mischief. In an effort to curb this trend, a new electronic device policy has been enacted for the 2022-2023 school year. So this was the electronic device policy. It's a 2-page thing. They've adopted a policy regarding cell phone, smartphone, electronic device, which prohibits usage by students during the day in school buildings, on district property, and on school buses and other forms of district transportation. Exceptions to this policy exist when district-provided electronic devices are being used for classroom instruction under teacher supervision, or if they are mandated under a student's IEP or 504 service agreements. Their first offense is a phone conference will be held with a parent or guardian. A verbal warning will be issued. Upon completion with the conference, the electronic device will be returned to the student at the end of the school day. The second offense, a phone conference, another phone conference for the parent or guardian, detention will be issued and an electronic device will be returned only to a parent or guardian. Students will not be permitted to retrieve their own electronic device. Any subsequent offenses like this, a phone conference will be held by the parent or guardian, detention will be issued, and the electronic device will be submitted daily to the office and determined through a conference between administration and the parent and guardian. See, when I was back in school, there was a thing to where back in the day, if you used your phone in class, the teacher would take it up and take it to the office. You'd have to pay $15 to get it back. That was their school policy. I think I feel the same way. So the bottom line is this. We need to limit cell phone use in schools because it can lead to cyberbullying, drugs, smoking, and a distraction in the learning environment. Let's limit cell phone use in schools. You're looking for a used car and think you found just the one. Well, up next, we're going to look at a hidden camera investigation about cars that are then put back on the road. But the question is, how are these dealers getting away with this? We'll tell you a trend that's been going on when we return. Stay with us. I got a question for you. Are you thinking about buying a car? Maybe a used one. For those errands around town, or as a Christmas present, birthday present, or graduation present. When you get to the used car lot, you probably hope to find a car that is handled with care, but without too much mileage. So on and so forth. But what if you found out later that, according to the original report, it's been either hauled out of a lake or the roof for it need to be replaced? So really, that stuff can cost you money and injuries. So here's Bob McCune with a Dateline hidden camera investigation back in 1998.
More than 1 million times every year. Cars wrecked in traffic accidents or by acts of nature, perhaps by raging floodwaters. Cars that are then totaled out by insurance companies, written off because the cost to repair them is higher than their value. In other words, because it's not worth it to fix them properly. So for total wrecks like these, it's the end of the road, the junkyard, right? Wrong. In body shops and garages across the country, many of these cars get a whole new life. They're rebuilt, then sold through dealerships across the country. And as Dateline discovered, you could be driving one and not even know it. Our investigation found dealers who take advantage of loopholes in the law to hide the wrecked history of cars like these and sell them to unsuspecting buyers. What's more, we also uncovered serious safety concerns about rebuild wrecks. Rebuilders who cut corners, who do sloppy work that can have dangerous, even deadly results. 2 years ago, Henry and Shirley Cox were killed in a violent head-on collision. It was a painful tragedy for their 6 children.
It's hard. I've got the youngest child, and my baby will remember his grandparents from pictures.
But what made it even more difficult for this close-knit Alabama family was what they discovered after the accident. The driver's airbag had not deployed.
And our father has suffered a lot of facial trauma, and the airbag would have protected his face.
A head-on collision is precisely the kind of accident for which airbags were designed. The Cox's 1994 Dodge Spirit was equipped with a driver's side airbag. This home videotape the family made right after the fatal crash clearly shows the airbag never came out of the steering wheel. But there was something else about the car that the family didn't know. It was not the first time that Dodge had been totaled.
It was pretty toasted.
Darrell and Christy LaRose live 2 states over in Louisiana. They're the car's original owners. The Dodge was stolen from their house, and the thieves then set the interior on fire.
The seats, the dashboard, the back seat, the carpet, everything was pretty toasted. It was gone.
Their insurance company, State Farm, declared the Dodge a total loss and estimated repairs at $8,000. So the car was hauled to this salvage yard in New Orleans and auctioned off to this man, Benny Johnson.
I guarantee to buy it in paintwork on the areas that I fixed.
Okay. Johnson, seen here on hidden camera, is a licensed rebuilder and car dealer. He bought the LaRose's burnt-out wreck in Louisiana, hauled it back to Alabama, cleaned it up, and sold it to Henry and Shirley Cox. The family says Johnson told them the car fire was no big deal.
They said that it had some cigarette burns.
Dateline obtained these documents, in which Johnson claimed he'd replaced the car seat and the carpeting. Just $250 in parts to rebuild a car the insurance company said was a total loss, with $8,000 in damage.
No, it's impossible. No way. No
There
way.
was nothing.
The original owners don't believe Benny Johnson.
You had to restore the dash. I mean,
The
half
whole
of the
thing, I
dash
guess
was melted.
the chips and all or whatever in the dash, they had to be all replaced, no doubt. But $250, no way.
This is fraud. It wasn't just the seats and the carpeting. No, there was a lot more work done to the car than this.
We brought a nationally recognized automobile expert to Alabama to examine the wreck. Forrest Falk is a forensic mechanic who's testified in court cases around the country.
Oh, yeah. You can see the soot.
He says something else was replaced on that rebuilt car, the airbag.
This bag originally came off a car with a blue interior.
Falk says his clue was that after the accident, the spray paint on the airbag cover wore off.
This is a used airbag. It came out of another vehicle.
The Cox family says it was the paint job that fooled their father.
And, you know, he was bragging about it having the airbag, and that's why when the airbag didn't work, that's what, I guess, hurt us so bad.
It's common for rebuilders to take used parts from one totaled wreck and to use them to rebuild another wreck. Cannibalizing cars, and in some cases cutting corners, is how rebuilders make their profit.
If it's not the original, you don't know that it's going to work, that your family's going to be safe in it.
The Cox family will never know whether that airbag could have saved their father's life. Because of the condition of the car, our expert was unable to determine why the airbag failed or whether the airbag had been installed correctly. But Dateline has discovered there are serious questions about the quality of some of the work done in Benny Johnson's shop.
Well, I want a safe car. I don't want to get in a death trap.
Mildred Perkins wanted to give her daughter Emily a high school graduation present she'd never forget. An honor student, the drum major at her school in Alabama, voted most likely to succeed. For 18-year-old Emily, that car was also a symbol of her independence.
I thought it was cute, and we went back and looked at it.
The car was this 1993 Pontiac Le Mans. It had less than 10,000 miles on the odometer and a shiny new coat of paint. And car dealer Benny Johnson told them he had only made minor repairs.
He implied that it wasn't very serious. He told us he replaced the windshield and he replaced the door.
They had no idea that cute Pontiac had been so severely damaged in a rollover accident that the insurance company had declared it a total wreck. Sound familiar? Like the Cox family, Emily and her mother trusted Benny Johnson.
He guaranteed his work.
He guaranteed his work in what way? What exactly did he say?
Anything that he did to it, he guaranteed, you know, that it would be safe.
On a rainy afternoon, less than 6 months after she bought it, Emily Perkins' car skidded off this country road not far from her home.
I flipped one time. I don't know if it was the roof crashing in or if it was my neck breaking, but it sounded like a piece of paper being wadded up, just a crunch. And after that, everything was silent.
The Pontiac's roof had completely collapsed all the way down to the dashboard, breaking Emily's neck and trapping her in the car.
And then I thought, well, I could probably climb out of here and climb up onto the road. But then I realized I couldn't move my arms. And then I didn't know what to do. I tried to scream, but I couldn't get anything to come out of my mouth. About 3 or 4 nights before she had the wreck, I had this dream that she would have a wreck and that 2 men in white coats would come and tell me that she'd never walk again.
The nightmare came true. The accident left her daughter a quadriplegic. Why did the roof collapse? When cars come off the assembly line, federal guidelines say a roof must be able to support 1.5 times the weight of the vehicle in order to prevent the roof from collapsing in a rollover. But there's no one enforcing these safety standards on rebuilt wrecks. This is Emily's car after the accident. The crushed roof had been pulled back by rescue workers to get her out of the wreckage. But that roof isn't the car's original roof at all. Instead, it's a replacement roof, cut from an entirely different automobile and welded onto the Pontiac's frame in Benny Johnson's shop. Jim Green is the Perkins lawyer.
The welds were described by the metallurgist who inspected it as among the worst welds he had ever seen.
In depositions, Johnson said he thought the roof was safe, but that he didn't follow federal safety standards. The welder acknowledged he had no formal training. In fact, according to the Perkins lawyer, the roof was barely held in place with nothing to reinforce it.
What they did was they welded around the outside, and then when they had this glob of metal around the outside that built up around the edge, they came back and ground it down smooth. And so, in effect, they ground off most of the welding that they had put on to hold it together. So that they painted over it, and you couldn't tell it had been welded together.
The cover-up continued with the car's paperwork. In records obtained by Dateline, Johnson lied about the work he had done to the car, claiming he replaced just the door and the windshield, a total of $300 in parts. No mention of the new roof.
If he had said, this car was in fact in a serious accident, and I replaced the windshield and I replaced the door and I had to replace the entire roof, would that have changed the way you looked at that automobile?
Absolutely. I never would have bought that car. He said the car was safe for Emily, and he guaranteed his work. You know, whatever he did to it, he was standing behind his work.
I stand behind my body work and all that.
That's exactly what Benny Johnson told two Dateline producers who went shopping with hidden cameras at his shop.
And about how much is that one?
That there's 10.5.
Oh, 10.5.
So how can rebuilders like Johnson make a profit on cars the insurance companies say would cost too much to repair?
Well, because they're not repairing the car up to safe industry standards. They're cutting corners, sacrificing quality, sacrificing the safety of the vehicle, and so that leaves a larger profit margin.
And apparently a large profit. Remember the Dodge that Johnson had sold to Henry and Shirley Cox, the car that had been burned in a fire? Johnson bought that wreck from the salvage yard for $700. He sold it to the Cox family for nearly 10 times that much, $6,500. And Emily Perkins' Pontiac? Johnson spent more money on the paint job than on the welds that were hidden under the paint. His estimated profit? More than $2,000. That's more than most dealers make on brand new cars.
I don't think the car should have ever been put back on the road. I don't think we should have had the opportunity to have bought that car.
I don't see how they sleep. They have no ethics. They have no morals. They are strictly in it for the buck. It's just an incredible ripoff.
Benny Johnson says he did tell Emily Perkins about the roof before he sold her the car. He settled a lawsuit for an undisclosed sum, money to help cover her medical expenses. We wanted to ask Benny Johnson about the cars he sold to Emily Perkins and the Cox family, but he refused our repeated requests for an interview. So we went to see him.
Mr. Johnson here.
Put that son back in the truck and leave. I don't want y'all.
Mr. Johnson, I'm Bob McCoon from Dateline NBC.
Y'all get out of here. I don't want y'all.
We'd like to talk to you, if we could, about the cars you sell
I
here.
called the sheriff. Y'all don't leave. I don't want y'all here.
We'd just like to ask a couple of questions.
Benny Johnson is far from the only one rebuilding wrecks in this country. Estimates are that 1 million cars a year, totaled by insurance companies, end up right back out on the road. So what are the chances the car you're driving is one of them? So how can you tell if the car you're buying is a total wreck? You may have heard about these, and we'll tell you what that scam is when we come back. Stay with us. Cars are being moved from state to state, and the history has been being changed by some shady car dealers. How's it done? Once again, here's Bob McEwen. 2 years ago, when Hurricane Opal hit the Florida Panhandle, the rising sea, relentless wind, and driving rain devastated this region and almost everything in it.
But if you think you escaped the effects of that hurricane just because you live, 1,000 miles away from here, don't be so smug. Some of Opal's wreckage just might be parked in your garage.
Among Hurricane Opal's casualties, thousands of automobiles, worth more than $10 million, that were totaled by insurance companies.
With the water intrusion, especially salt water, the bodies begin to rot, literally from the inside out.
Forrest Folk, a nationally recognized automotive expert, says those cars are scrapped for good reason.
Everything from servos and switches to motors to relays, everything electrically stops working or short circuits. The potential is great for a fire.
The state of Florida declared all of these vehicles to be junk, wrecks that are supposed to be sold only for scrap or spare parts. Sold at salvage auctions like this one, held shortly after Hurricane Opal. You can see that all the cars are clearly marked unrebuildable. But the bidding is intense. Buyers come from as far away as Pennsylvania. And listen to what they're saying.
90% of them will be back on the road somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's an easy fix. It looks bad, but it isn't.
While Florida authorities insist these cars will never be roadworthy and can never again be registered, there are many other states where these very same vehicles can be sold, licensed, and driven. And believe it or not, it's all perfectly legal.
Unrebuildable cars go to some states and they can become buildable.
It's called title laundering, and here's how it works. Every car has a title. It's like an automobile's birth certificate. Florida stamped all these cars junk right on their titles as a warning to any future buyers. But rebuilders know that different states have differing laws. So ship the car north, say to New Jersey, where the state doesn't have a junk classification. And New Jersey simply drops the Florida warning and issues a new, clean title with no clue about the car's past. Remember the car Emily Perkins bought? The one with the rebuilt roof that collapsed and broke her neck?
In any of the paperwork for the car, was there any mention that it had been a salvage title and that the roof had been replaced?
No.
No mention of either of those things?
Nothing that showed us that it was anything wrong with it.
That car originally had a Pennsylvania title, where it was clearly stamped salvage. But then the dealer, Benny Johnson, brought the car to Alabama and got a new clean title. And that's exactly what happened to the Cox family's car. The salvage stamp in Louisiana disappeared in Alabama.
Hiding the history of a wrecked or flooded car can add hundreds, even thousands of dollars to its value. It's a scam consumer groups estimate costs American consumers $4 billion a year, paying too much for vehicles that were once, and may still be, junk.
Well, it makes you feel stupid. Because you've been taken advantage of.
Beth Jorgensen and her husband Doug needed a second car, something for her to haul their 4 kids around in their hometown of Des Moines, Iowa.
Can you give me a smoocher?
Yeah. They bought this 1990 Cougar from a local car dealer for $7,500. But the Jorgensens had no idea that the car had previously been totaled by an insurance company in New Jersey, where the title was clearly marked with the ominous warning that this was a flood car. But Iowa gave the car dealer a clean title. That flood warning just disappeared. And the very day the Jorgensens brought home their automobile, the problems began.
Water was actually leaking out of the transmission.
Even simple things like the car's seatbelts don't work properly, and Beth Jorgensen is afraid to drive her kids in it.
I make sure that I stay within city limits and have a phone nearby in case I need to call someone to help.
Yeah, I would think we probably lost $10,000 on this car.
Also, the seat adjustments do not work.
The Jorgensens tried to get their money back, and they're not alone. Dozens of consumers had complained about the same car dealers to the state of Iowa.
Basically, it was a theft recovery and light front end damage.
Mike and Sherry Yankee thought they were getting a good deal. The dealer told them the minor damage to the truck they wanted was due to the fact that the pickup had been stolen and then recovered. That much was true, but the dealer left out one big detail.
They hauled it out of a lake.
Wait a minute. That car was found having been stolen.
In a lake, right.
And it would cost them another $1,700 on top of what they'd already paid to fix the hidden damage. The Yankees wanted a refund.
And they said that no money was coming our way. They weren't taking the pickup back. They weren't going to give our money back.
Both the couples were taken in by the same car dealer, John Zuspan. In 1996, the state of Iowa revoked his license to sell cars and fined him $20,000 for cheating customers. But later that year, his girlfriend, Kim Russell, simply opened a dealership in her name and called it Freedom Auto. That's where we found them both working last summer. Have they changed their ways? To find out, we went car shopping with hidden cameras rolling.
Oh, I mean, it has everything. It has CD player, tape player, big sunroof.
Kim Russell is trying to sell this handsome sport utility, a Mitsubishi Montero. What she doesn't know is that we know the Montero used to look like this. It had been hit head-on by a semi-trailer truck in Nebraska and totaled as a wreck. The insurance company damage estimate was $20,000.
The only thing that I know of right now that is the store handle. This one right here is broken. I have one on order though.
Russell tells two Dateline producers the car is in near perfect condition. No disclosure. It was once a totaled wreck.
You're more than welcome to take it for a drive or
On a second shopping trip, Russell tells a slightly different story. The car had some damage, she says. But how much?
A slight skirmish in a parking lot, or
Oh no, well I mean no.
a collision with an 18-wheeler?
Well no, I don't think it was a collision with an 18-wheeler. It wasn't quite that bad.
What's more, Kim Russell told us during both visits that at Freedom Auto, their priority is customer service.
Yeah, so if you ever have any problems with that car, or if, if you need any kind of work, you just bring it back here and we'll help you get it fixed. And
Really? Dozens of complaints filed with the state said the car dealers lied to customers, misrepresented cars, and laughed and hung up on customers who complained.
They were just smug. It was like, you bought it, you're stuck with it. Too bad you lose.
My name's Bob McCune. I'm at Dateline NBC.
Oh, hi.
We've got a couple of cameras here, by the way.
Oh, geez.
We're taping this. Your name is on the title for a car sold to the Yankees in Denison. A truck, Ford pickup, that you said was a salvage, but they found out had actually been found in a lake.
So I don't want to hear this.
Shortly after our visit, the state of Iowa shut down Freedom Auto. But closing dishonest dealers doesn't get rid of the loophole that leaves wrecked cars with clean titles in the first place. Congressman Rick White of Washington State has introduced federal legislation to change that.
Well, every time you go to the used car lot and you buy a car, you'll see a little notation on the title that says this car was totaled before we sold it to you.
But the proposed law only applies to cars where the damage exceeds 80% of the vehicle's value. Consumer groups oppose the bill because many rebuilt wrecks, including the one that crushed Emily Perkins, would not be covered by the law.
If a law like this doesn't address what happened to that kid in Alabama, shouldn't it?
Well, it's like I say, we'd like to make sure every kid is in a safe car if we can, and what we're trying to do is come up with a law that balances all those various considerations as much as possible.
It's a proposal supported by a national rebuilders group that says a few unscrupulous rebuilders tarnish an entire industry. Rebuilders say good quality work can make a totaled wreck as good as new and as safe. Unfortunately for Emily Perkins, that just wasn't the case with her car.
I just want to urge people to know what they're buying. And if these cars weren't allowed to be sold, maybe that would be one more person who wouldn't be sitting in my place.
Here's what you can do.
Congressman White's national titling bill has been passed by the House. It's now pending before the Senate. In the meantime, there is a way you can check on whether you're driving or buying a rebuilt wreck. First, write down the car's vehicle identification number, the 17 digits on the driver's side dashboard. Take the number to your state's motor vehicle registration office and ask for a title history check. There are also services on the internet that can check the history for you instantly. Both types of searches, through the state or through the internet, will cost you about $12.
Also for tire washing, it's federal crime, so if you have good reason to believe someone's engaged in it, contact your state's Attorney General office or the Department of Consumer Affairs. If you've already purchased a car, consult with an attorney to find out how to establish a case and obtain the damages from the seller. That was actually from Capital One, but I don't even talk. It's really not similar to all this, but again. write down the vehicle's identification number on the dashboard, take the state style history, and their services on the internet. Again, probably around $20. So if this law went forward years ago, it should be able to happen here in the state because we want everyone in a safe car. So let's be safe in vehicles. Speaking of vehicles, on Monday, what caused... So on Monday, we're going to talk about sudden acceleration. And I'll have a preview of that in just a moment. Here's a preview of tomorrow, Monday's Give Me a Break.
Dateline Wednesday, February 10th, 1999. Tonight, what caused this minivan to suddenly accelerate, killing his wife and their young son?
I looked over, and Nathan Stroll was right in the path of the van.
Did the driver hit the gas instead of the brake?
She had to have her foot on the brake. I see the brake lights, you know.
Or is there something about the design of these vehicles that could turn them into unpredictable, high-speed, lethal weapons?
Have you tested this on a real car?
Yes.
Tonight, new information on the mysterious problem of runaway cars. A new theory about how a popular option may have caused some cars to suddenly accelerate and drive off on their own.
That's one wire.
Dateline has uncovered things you've never heard before. Information not even the experts knew.
Do you still believe that pedal error accounts for all of these cases?
Stone Phillips with a Dateline investigation.
That's Monday. That's Give Me a Break for this Saturday going to Sunday. We will see you again for Give Me a Break Monday for Sunday Celebration. While it's here at Give Me a Break and YouTube, stop bullying, speak up. Good night, everyone.